Today's session 4, and we're gonna be studying about segues, the famous MVC design pattern, and we're gonna be looking at different kind of mobile applications. So let's start up with the MVC design pattern because it's gonna be super fun and super easy to understand. So let's start up with this. So this is the MVC design pattern. This is model, view, and controller. I speak again: model, view, controller. This is the MVC design pattern, and the iOS is based on MVC design pattern. What exactly is model, view, and controller? So model is your database, which uh, which can be any. Like I personally like to use Parse database. You can make a server, or you can have a MongoDB, or you can have whatever you feel like. This is the database. This is a view. So a view is basically whatever you see on the application. A view is simply the display that you see, that you interact with. Controller. This is the main line of communication between the model and the view. So your controller is mainly responsible for having for communicating between the model and the view. So you enter your code in controller, and so what happens? Suppose the view needs some data to load. So view will ask the controller like to give the data, and then the model and then the controller will talk to the model, and the model will reply to the controller, and then controller will give the data for the view to be loaded. This is the concept of MVC. Okay. So as I told before, the view and the model can never talk between each other. So your view will talk to the controller, and then the controller will talk to the model. This is the main idea between view, controller, and model. So your view will talk to the controller, and then the controller will talk to the model. As you see, the green arrows is which is possible, and the red arrows is which is not possible. Um, so this is the whole same thing. So basically what happens, suppose the view wants to show something, so then it makes an action, and then the controller, and then it sends to the controller, and then controller sees it, and then the controller analyzes it, and then it asks the model to provide the data. So view calls the controller by using delegate methods. And what's a delegate method? A delegate method is nothing, just callback methods. So a delegate method is to invoke a method inside the controller, and then the controller talks to the model, get the data, and then it goes to the view to be displayed. So basically views will never own the data which is displayed onto them. So the model is also known as a data source, and the view is mostly known as a view controller. So your data source is the main data, and then your delegate are the methods, delegate methods, and this data source invokes the model to get the data. Mhm. So we're gonna be learning later about how does the controller talks with the model. Hi, now we're gonna look at different kind of applications, the mobile applications. So what we do right now is the native application development. So we make apps only for iOS using Objective-C. So our application cannot be deployed on a Windows phone or a BlackBerry phone or an Android phone. So we are making applications only for iOS, and that's it. We can also use Swift, but these are the only two languages that can be used with a native application. We get additional features with it, like you can use all the hardwares uh, of the phone device, like the GPS, the camera, the motion sensors, and there are a few more hardwares that can be accessed only by using these native languages. And the best part is that like you can use Xcode, which includes the storyboard or the interface builder. The second kind of applications are the web applications. So web applications used to be made before, but now they don't use it anymore. It was basically the web browser to open the application. So what happens? So what used to happen is that you are working on an application. For the user, it seems to be a normal application, but for the developer, he knows that when you hit on the application, it opens the web browser in the background, and that web browser is opening a website. But for the user cannot see the difference between both of it. So before like 3 years or 4 years, at that time Objective C was of no use. Objective C was not really used to make Apple development and Swift. So at that time, the developers used to use Objective-C, the front end languages to make the applications. And so this is a very famous topic for these days. It is known as hybrid applications. Hybrid application is basically a combination of web application and a native application. So what happens? So the whole interface is made using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the whole interface, and to access the hardwares like camera, a gyroscope, an accelerometer, a GPS. So they guys use the Objective C or Swift language to access these things. So basically, it is a combination of a web application and a native application. They are using front end languages which are used to make the web applications, to make the interface, and they are using the native application, a native language, to access the hardware or the additional features. One of the best example is the LinkedIn application on your cell phone. So LinkedIn application is an hybrid application, and the Facebook application is a native application. So for LinkedIn application, these days people are going. The market is for both native as well as hybrid. Hybrid companies prefer because they can hire just one engineer and he can make the application for all the platforms. But it has some disadvantages like so there are bugs. It hangs and it cannot access all the features of the cell phone, and at times it crashes. But with the native applications, the disadvantage is that it is natively only for one application. So if you make a native application for an iPhone device, it can be only accessed on the iPhone device, and that's it. So now we're going to learn about Segue. Segue is basically how to go from one view controller to another view controller. This is the concept of Segue. Um, so this is the MVCs. Um, so like if you have one MVC, this is your one MVC, and this is your second MVC. And if you want to switch it, how you gonna go from one MVC to another MVC? So we use this concept of segue. Okay. Uh, okay, segues. So you have one view, and now we're gonna be doing it using an actual project. Okay, so let's start it. Let's make a new project. So file, new project, a single view application. Let's name it as Segue. Let's make it anyway. So till now we just have one view controller, right? This is our view controller. This is the view controller. Let's make it a smaller size. 4 inches. This is a view controller, and then we want another view controller now. Make another size 4 inches. Okay, so we have two view controllers now, and on this one let's add a button to it. So we added a button to it now. Let's have the button as a black color. Okay, so and let's name it as a segue button. Okay, and to make a segue between two view controllers, the way you do it is you hit control on the keyboard, you click on this button, and then you drag it from this view to this view, and then hit show. So like this you have made a segue button. You have set a segue from this view controller to this view controller. And now let's make another segue to go back. Let's have another button and name it as back segue. Now you hit control, click on this button, and then you go back. Okay, so now you can easily go back segue. So let's run the application. So now when you hit segue, now it goes to the second view. When you hit back, so it goes to the first view. When you hit segue, it goes to the second view, it goes to the first view. Okay, so now if you want to also add code, right now we are just playing with a storyboard is a graphical representation of the view controllers, but this is not the code, this is all GUI. The code is written for you in the background. Okay, so now if you want to access the code, so you go file, you set new, go to the new file, and over here you select Cocoa Touch class, and then you say second view controller. Let's give it a second view controller and a subclass of UI view controller. Then you hit next. Okay, now the name of my second view controller is second view controller.h&.m. So in our storyboard, the second view controller has to be also be named a second view controller, right? Because we want to declare it as a second view controller. So you hit on this view controller, this yellow mark, and then you go to the inspector, and over here in the class you give it a name second view controller. And that's so now this view controller has been linked to these two files, second view controller.h and .m. Okay, so let's see, but still we have just made files till now. We have not added code over here. We're gonna add code in just 2 minutes. Okay, now in our view controller.m we have this method view did load. So this view did load is called as soon as the application, this view controller is loaded. So I will say first view is loaded. Okay, and then in our second view controller I will do the same thing. In the view did load I will say nslog second view is loaded. Okay, so I have successfully input code into both of them. So as soon as my first view is loaded, I can see it, the first view is loaded. Now when I will click here, the second view controller will show up, and then in the log I will see the second view is loaded. See, the second view is loaded, and when I go back again the first view is loaded, so I will see again the first view. Now the second view, the first view, second view, the first view, second view, the first view, and this thing will keep on printing it out. So we have successfully made the segue. Now you get additional features. So if you not want to have a back segue, and if you want to have a back button, so you can also go to the product editor, embedded in navigation controller. So this will make a navigation controller for you. So this will happen. So when you embed it in a navigation controller, when you hit the segue, you will get a back button, and the second view is loaded. So you are getting the back button which is already embedded by the Apple. So you hit segue and then you say back. But you will see this thing that what happens, it maintains a stack. So the view is the view controllers are a collection of stacks. So what happens, so you have one view controller and then on top of that you have the second view controller, right? So when you go to the second one, the second one is put on top of the first one. So the view did load is called, but when you hit back, the second one is just removed, but the first one is still there in the memory. The first one is not released yet. It's not removed from the memory. So the view did load is never called because the view is not loaded again. The view is still there in the memory. So again, when I go to second view, the second view is loaded, but when I hit back, the second view is just removed from the memory so that you can view the first one, and that's how the first and second view is maintained. So if you use a navigation controller, you will not get the view dead load of the first view controller after the second try, because the first view controller is not loaded yet. It is just there in the memory. Okay. Now we have used storyboard to make our segues, right? So now if you want to use our code to make segues, we're going to learn that just in a few moments. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so till now we just use the slides to do it. So the way you do it is, this is the perform segue. Now let's try to make it using segues, using code. So go to your storyboard and then you make an IB outlet of the button. Let's delete the navigation control. Okay, so I remove my navigation controller and I make it a button. I make a type action and say button. I say action. Okay, and in my button action I put my code. So you just say, and then inside your storyboard you also have to give it a name. So you say, let's give it a name. So just give it like a name like identify as segue1. Okay, then you go self perform segue with identifier, and the name was segue1 and the center is self. Okay, so when you hit the keyboard, so now you're basically using code to do your segues. Okay, and you also have to set the entry point at times. Entry point is this: you hit the main storyboard and then you say is initial view controller. So this arrow mark should be there. This says that which is the first view of the storyboard. Okay, let's rerun. So it's working, and we have removed the back segue, so it won't work. Okay, and now let's go to the main. And one thing, so before the segue is fired, you get this method like where another method is called. So always before a segue is called, this method is called prepare for segue. You can just nslog this method is called before the segue is executed. So whenever you hit the button, so this segue is called. So you can see this method is called before the segue is executed. Okay, and in this one you can also be comparing, like if you have 2 or 3 segues and if you want to perform different operation on different segue, so you can also say if, then you can say segue, you can compare dot identifier is equal to string give segue1. So then only execute this part. Oh yeah, it is a objective C, so we forgot the square brackets. And then, so what happens? So it will first identify it, and then it will call the segue. Okay, and then you can also pass the values or do anything or instance show. I'm not instantiating it from over here. I will just like put it into a new. I will just call the segue. So in this one, you can also send values. We're gonna learn it later how to send values. Or we can do it over here right now. Okay, yeah. So let's send value. So over here, let's make it a property of type property nesting star. I made a nesting star str, and over here I will just print out my str. Okay, and from my storyboard I will set the value of that str. So to set the value of that str, I have to set it over here. So you instantiate that view controller, and for that you have to import this view controller hash import second view controller.h. So I instantiate this view controller, and inside this view controller I am setting this one as this yeah, second view controller star vc equals to segue dot destination view controller. Okay, I basically told like which is the I'm basically like allocating the second view controller to this variable, and now I will access the properties of it. Str equals to set the value. So now when I hit run, in my second view controller, I'm not setting the value of that variable and a string variable. I'm just sending it from the first, and then I'm printing it out over there. So when I print it out over there, print it out. Set the value and then new hits. So let's do this. Let's also add /n this is gonna print the variable. So we're gonna do the second view controller to just like print it out. We're gonna do /n. Okay, to see. So let's see if it works or not. Okay, yeah, so it works. Set the value, and it's printing it out. Okay guys, so today we learned what is MVC design pattern, we learned what is segue, and we learned a different kind of applications. So we learned segue with the storyboard as well as with the as well as through code. So tomorrow I'm gonna upload one of my other videos. So if you like my video, please subscribe to my video, so that so this keeps me pumped up that yeah, people are watching my video. So I'm signing out. I'm Chirag. See you next time. Goodbye.